Welcome to Ninerology. I'm your host, Alan, and we're here to talk about one of the most underrated players on the entire 49ers roster who just happens to be the best player at his position across the NFL. Who is that? That is none other than the one and only George Kittle, number 85. And talk about a tone setter, culture setter for a team, playmaker, and what he does week in and week out, always going giving 110%, plays every down like it's his last. And I think what sets him apart is not just what he does on the field, but also in the locker room, what he does as far as keeping that team dynamic as well. But let's talk about this offseason. And George Kittle, as we know, is always kind of playing with some bumps and bruises. In fact, after the Super Bowl, he had to have surgery for a core muscle surgery. In fact, this was his quote: "I couldn't lift, I couldn't do any upper body because of my shoulders and my ribs, and I couldn't do lower body because of my core surgery. I didn't lift from the Super Bowl until like almost mid-March. I went a month without doing anything." And in that, he had lost 30 pounds, and he's regained about 20 of that. So he's 10 pounds lighter than last year, which means he's going to be a bit more explosive when running those routes, doing what he does. And I just think for him to put up the numbers that he did last year, lead the NFL from the tight end position when it comes to receiving yards, but be playing with those injuries, it's amazing that he was able to do what he did. And I think he is such an asset to this team. And honestly, it's why Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch don't prioritize the right side of the offensive line. They're able to keep guys like Colton McKivitz. They're able to have guys like Mike McGlinchey in the past because they had a dependable tight end that could not only go out for a pass, but he could block and block effectively. Not just help in the passing game, but also run blocking. In fact, in the past 10 years, nobody has had a higher run blocking grade as a tight end than George Kittle. He has a record for that. There's nobody else close to him because of what he does. Now, when it comes to the top career overall grades for the tight end position in Pro Football Focus history, it's three players. You have Travis Kelce, you have Rob Gronkowski, and then you have George Kittle. And when it's all said and done, when George Kittle's done with his career, I wouldn't doubt he's one or two on that list because of what he does year in and year out. And what he's done for Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy depends on George Kittle. While the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, and John Lynch depend on him to block, guess what? Brock Purdy needs him as that outlet, and he proved it last year. And I think as the year goes on, as you begin to see what he does, and honestly, as he recovers from this core surgery, we're going to see that explosiveness come back. I wouldn't doubt that he has another career year this year. And let's break down some numbers. I think throughout their careers, George Kittle and Travis Kelce are always going to be the conversations around this. And let's talk about since 2017, when it comes to receiving yards and the grades according to Pro Football Focus, Travis Kelce is 94.3, George Kittle is 93.3. So 1 point ahead for Kelce. But in every other statistical category, George Kittle is ahead. When it comes to yards per reception, Kittle's at 13.7. Travis Kelce's at 12.3. When it comes to yards per route, Kittle's at 2.26. Kelce's at 2.19. When it comes to yak yards, Kittle's at 7.3. Kelce's at 5.3. And so when you begin to break down the things and what Kittle brings to the game, it's no reason why he is the best tight end in the NFL. And I think this year is going to be one of those years where they're going to lean on him very heavily. In fact, when it came to last year, he was targeted ninth most out of all tight ends, but he led the league in receiving yards for tight ends. He was number 2, tied second for receiving touchdowns. Receptions, he was 10th, which means he did a lot of the work after the catch, which is what we know. He's part of the Yak brothers. He does what he does, and he does it well. And I think this year we're going to see a lot more George Kittle emphasized in the offense, even though there's the extension for McCaffrey, even though you got Pearsall in the game, even though you pick up Logan Thomas, even though you have Deebo Samuel and possibly Brandon Ayuk coming back. I still think George Kittle is what really opens up this offense because he really opens up that field. And Brock Purdy is a great improviser. He can extend those plays, and George Kittle is that safety blanket. So look out for George Kittle to be the breakout player of the year for the 49ers. And you heard it here first. George Kittle is going to have 1,400 yards receiving, the most by far for a 49ers tight end. And I think Kittle is going to honestly be in line for another extension after this year. Even though he's getting up there in age, this year he's going to go ahead and show why he is still the best tight end in the NFL. And again, look out for X Factor George Kittle, number 85. And that's all we have for today for this week's edition of Ninerology. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.